that are a little bit more,
Sorry.
this is going to be recorded. I will send through recordings of maybe a previous one we've done as well that had a little bit more participation, but we've still got the pre-submitted questions. So how today will run is we'll give you a little bit of a background on who we are, and then also our own experiences with applying for nursing jobs, etc. And then we'll address your questions. Firstly, so today is about you guys, but just so you have a little bit of background on who we are, I'll just take you through a little bit. Give me a second. I'll just share my screen. Sharing is not turned on. Can you just accept that, Anita?
I've allowed it. Yep.
Amazing. I am wanting to share, not that one. Perfect. Okay. So we're here from the Nurses Professional Association of Australia. If you guys haven't heard of us, we cover basically indemnity insurance and workplace support Australia-wide. That's me. I'm the secretary. This is Michelle. She is our wonderful treasurer. I'm going the wrong way. So basically we look after you in the workplace. So if you have any issues, have questions about what your rights are, etc., we can help you out. We run lots of campaigns. So Cara is our president. She's very active in the media and always trying to work things out for our members. A big thing that you'll need to know heading towards applying for your jobs is that you need to get your ARPA registration. I would start looking at that earlier rather than later when you come to applying for your jobs, because the last thing you want is to be stressed about that leading up to your first day. Some people leave it to the last minute, and I did go to an ARPA presentation where they said they do not prioritize based on your start date. They prioritize based on the order that the applications come in. There are somewhere between 15,000 to 30,000 new grads every year. So you are a drop in the ocean when it comes to ARPA registrations. So you really want to get that done sooner rather than later. With your ARPA registration, there are a few things you need. So you need professional indemnity insurance. When you fill out your ARPA application form, there'll be a little box that you tick saying, I will be covered adequately when I'm working. Some people think that that means that they actually are getting their indemnity insurance through ARPA, but that's not true. You actually have to source it yourself. You also need to do 20 hours of CPD a year. You won't have to worry about sourcing that too much in your grad year, because you'll have plenty of opportunities and just need to document it. And recency of practice will also not be relevant to you at the moment. You need to do 450 hours within 5 years, but I think they're changing that soon. Is that what you said? So watch this space. But for the moment, to maintain your registration, you need to do 450 hours, which is about 3 months full-time work. So professional indemnity insurance is required to have $10 million worth of cover. You can get that through an insurance broker. You can get it through an association like us, or some workplaces provide it. It is good to go and get your own cover though, as you know, a workplace primarily will end up looking after themselves if something goes wrong. So you want to know that you've got your own personal cover. And this is just a little bit from the ARPA website that shows you do need to have that. We are a lot cheaper than other options out there. These are just some tips that I give to new grads, but we'll cover that more on a later date when you're about to start your grad program. And we offer 50% off for new grads. I know I was absolutely povo when I started my grad program after weeks and weeks of unpaid placements. So that's something that you can look at closer to when you're starting work. So I'll just finish sharing that. And then we'll kickstart straight into it. So Michelle, she has sat, she likes going first. Michelle has a lot of experience. She started as a paramedic. She's worked as an EN and an RN and has sat on interview panels as well. Maybe expand a little bit on that, or do you want me to just...
Well, you can keep going.
Yeah. So for Queensland Health,
yeah.
Michelle has sat on the interview panels for new graduates, so she's got quite a lot of exposure to what the panel is looking for in candidates and what they read hundreds of applications and hundreds of cover letters, so she can help with guiding what we're looking for when you are writing them and submitting them. And then we've also got lovely Ashley here. So Ashley attended these webinars. How long ago now, Ashley? Is it 1 or 2 years ago?
2 years ago. I've
Yeah,
been registered for 2 years now.
amazing. So Ashley came to some of our webinars. This is a series of them. So we start with helping you figure out your application. Then we do another free webinar for preparing for your interviews. And then we do another one closer to your start dates that helps you know what to expect in your grad year. And we have a panel of about 6 or 7 nurses from different fields. So Ashley attended those and she said she found them quite helpful, but I'll hand over to Ashley to tell you a little bit about herself and where she's worked.
Good morning, everyone. Thanks for coming along today. So my name's Ashley. I am a registered nurse in perioperative. So I work as a scrum scout at a smaller metro hospital in Brisbane. I joined NPAQ as a student for free, just so I could get access to the webinars. And I really liked the membership platform as a whole because I wasn't wanting to support any political parties. I just wanted insurance. And then I found out that they had some great webinars going forward for my applications. So I was able to take away lots of notes from the webinars about what I need to include in my cover letters, how to best present for my interviews, kinds of things that I would expect during my grad year. And I found it really helpful. So I'm just here today just to answer any questions you'll have as students going forward for your grad program.
Yes, and it's a lot fresher for Ashley as she's only done it in the last 1 or 2 years. And I think you got your first preference, didn't you, Ash?
Yeah, absolutely. I just was able to align my scenarios in my application to exactly where I wanted to be and first preference straight off the bat.
Wonderful. Also, guys, if any questions are coming to mind while we're talking, or if you haven't pre-submitted them, please do pop them in the chat because we will address them, especially since it's such a small group today. We will absolutely be able to answer anything that you want to know. So please do utilize that. So lastly, me. I graduated 8 years ago now. I had no nursing background in my family, so I didn't know anything about it. In fact, when I started nursing at uni, I somehow thought that hospitals closed. I didn't know about night shifts, so I was very naive about what nursing looked like. I didn't work as an AIN or a USIN or anything like that. I just worked in the job I'd had the whole time. So when I graduated, I felt really behind the game. I also hadn't had placements that I thought were extremely helpful for preparing me for my nursing career. So I hadn't, inserted catheters or nasogastric tubes. I'd done very minimal IV meds. I had had very unhelpful RNs. So it was something that I just felt like a bit of a fraud and that I was really behind the game. I actually missed my first round of applications because, well, firstly, I think you would all have realized now that they open and close extremely quickly. So if you're not prepared or looking out for it, you can miss the boat, and that's pretty stressful. But I'd been a first responder at a family event to something that was pretty traumatic, and I was on my last placement at the time. And so I realized, I'm probably not in a great headspace to just start a grad year at the moment, but I made a promise to myself that I'd finish my degree first. So I wanted to take 6 months off, but then 6 months rolled around and I didn't get a grad program mid-year. So I had a whole year of no grad program and panicking, and then I got my grad program in my second year. I did interviews at Greenslopes Hospital I got invited to an interview at the Wesley, but didn't end up going. And then I ended up landing my job at Queensland Children's Hospital with Queensland Health. So I've done a few application processes. I think the people ask what exactly happens in each of them. They do change it up between the years. So, and COVID changed stuff as well. So some elements over Zoom have become more mainstream group interviews, scenario-based things, all sorts of stuff. So it's hard to tell you exactly what to expect in that respect. But at the moment, we're trying to just help you prepare for the interview, the application phase of it, sorry. So there's a few places that are open at the moment in Queensland, if you are Queensland based. So Ramsay Health will be opening tomorrow, I think. Queensland Health are currently open for the expression of interest form, and that closes in early March. Mater is open until mid-March. So you want to be getting on top of those sooner rather than later. If you are on placements, you really want to be getting your references now. So I've had some questions come through about where do we get our references from. They are going to be looking at your university ones, but if you do work in a medical field, sure, like get some from your manager there. But it was something that I found I didn't really look at. And when I started nursing, I looked after a lot of grads and students on the wards. And the students, some of them would come back like a year later and ask for a reference. And it doesn't mean I didn't like you, but I don't remember you. You were here for 1 week. You've changed your hair color. And then I've had, 20 other students since then. So I can't give you a good reference if you do that. You need to find the nurse who actually has worked with you. It doesn't always have to be like a num, it won't really know how you've worked. So clinical nurses are great, your shift team leaders, but also, sorry, are the hospitals that you mentioned open now for first or second round? The hospitals that are open now are for your mid-year intake. So they will be people who are going to start June, July, August. And then the next round for next year, that will be opening probably June, July for applications. So we'll do all of these webinars again at that point. Where was I at?
References. Facilitators are really good.
Yes, facilitators are awesome. The educators on the ward are really awesome. But I don't know if you agree with this, your application, like it's a piece of the puzzle. It's not the biggest piece of the puzzle, but if you don't have it, it's not going to look good. In fact, I don't think you can even get your expression of interest through on Queensland Health without the references now. So, yeah. And look, if you can't get any, maybe you will just need to get a work reference that's not medical as well. Just to have something, and then maybe say I have a placement coming up and I'll send it through straight away. Like there are people behind these processes, so you need to communicate with them if your situation is a bit out of the ordinary. There's usually an email address for you to contact grad recruiters and things like that, so do utilize that, like for sensible questions, not painful ones. They've got a lot on their plate, but you can touch base and just sort of figure out what's best for your situation. So no judgment on me here, but I will just show you what my resume looks like. I was trying to find my cover letter, but I haven't been able to find it. This is quite a while ago. And yes, it's naughty. I do have my personal details on there, so don't come and stalk me. That one, share. Oh, far out. Sorry, guys. I don't know if the other girls would agree with me, but I found being a nurse doesn't necessarily make you very tech savvy. Okay, so I had who I am at the top, just a brief overview of what I was after. I had no medical experience, so I had to pull on other stuff. And I hear a lot of questions from, say, mums who've transitioned to nursing quite late in life, and they're like, oh, what do? I've just been a mum. You haven't just been a mum, you've had heaps of things that are transferable skills, or you've been a manager at Coles or something. You need to show how that is going to be something that can be applied to your work at the hospital. So I was the eldest of a lot of kids. I did really like I'm always naturally in charge of a lot of situations. So I brought that into it. There's been a couple of questions about how you put your placements out. So don't go into too much detail. They just might want to do a quick scan of where you've worked. I probably put too much. What do you think? Did I put too much detail in it? Like, yeah, so I just put how much time I spent there, a little brief thing on what I might have learned, and then just other experience I'd had as in work. Then other interests, and there were my references. So I actually did also get tutors from university who I'd had a lot of conversations with to do a reference for me. So you can think out the box a little bit if you need to. My cover letter was also the same in that I went into just telling a bit about me. I've had quite a few cover letters sent through to me to review, and they can just be a really hard read. Like they can be 2 or 3 pages long, too long. It needs to be 1 page,
Yeah,
1 page,
it's a thing.
not tiny writing. You are painting a snapshot of who you are. You don't have to tell everything about you've ever done, or, you know, if you're really passionate about a certain area, you can talk about that and why, but ultimately you may not end up in that area. But the people who are reading this are looking at you as someone who you end up being in the trenches with these people. You're either there'll be managers who sit on these panels, and they also can cherry pick who they want to sit on the interview panel of and say, I like the look of this one. So you're a human being who will be working with other human beings in one of the most difficult fields that's just, you know, go, go, go. So definitely don't feel it's unprofessional to lean into talking a bit about who you are, your likes, your interests, what makes you tick, all that sort of stuff. Do you have?
Yeah, pretty much why you want to be a nurse, just briefly, what you bring to the profession, just that sort of stuff.
Yeah, like
Yeah,
you do sell yourself a little bit.
What you've learned, really great positions.
But from
not great positions,
your placements.
Yeah.
From reading them, did you find stuff that had a bit of a personal touch?
Just slightly.
Yeah, not overly, but yeah. So just making sure you humanize the whole process a little bit does help. And then there'll be different stages of the application. So with the Wesley, I got sent a psychometric test. I had no idea what I was doing. It's like you know, you put shapes together and do all this sort of stuff. Once again, that's just a piece of the puzzle. Like, don't think that any one thing is the be all and end all. We had someone asking about GPAs as well. Like a high GPA can be really great, but ultimately, like I've worked with students and grads who had really good GPAs, like I'm talking nearly perfect, and they were the hardest ones to actually get proper information off, because a lot of nursing is gut feeling and communication. And so you might be really super, super smart, but if you don't have people skills and you can't go in and look at a patient and go, you don't look quite right, and then get out of them, like a middle-aged man, you can say, how are you feeling today? They're like, yeah, I'm great. And then the wife will say, he's not bloody great. He's been up all night with fevers and he's da 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 da. And you need to be able to have these conversations to paint the picture, and your GPA, to be honest, doesn't really make that happen. It's a part of the process, but they'll be looking at, does she have a good, or he have a good GPA? And then in the interview, how do they also present? How do you communicate? All those sort of things. So it's just all piece of puzzle. And if you had an average GPA, don't think that it's the end of the world. You've got other things that you can bring forward. Then with my Queensland Health application, my next process after getting the application through, what as in my resume and cover letter, is they sent me a few questions. So it was like scenario based on children and parents and how I would deal with it. And so I just had to write out a little bit about what I would do. A huge thing they're looking for, they don't expect you to know everything at this point. You can't possibly, because you haven't worked in the field, but they are going to be looking for, are you a safe nurse? Do you know your limitations? You basically, most of these scenarios will be you keeping your patient safe and escalating. So you need to be, you still have to have your RN hat on. Ultimately, you're not at the point anymore where you are just going to phone a friend and they deal with it. But yeah, it's just making sure that you are looking at a whole situation and knowing who to tell at the end of the day. Do you think that's fair?
Within your scope.
Yeah, working within your scope and working with the team.
Be safe, as you said.
Yeah, it's like it is a huge safety thing. So you'll have some scenario-based ones. When I did Greenslopes Hospital, a part of the process was also they brought me in for a quick simulation. I was on placement there, so I was just able to pop up and They had me show myself how to, they gave me a shift planner like for the day, and they said, I want you to prioritize what you need to do this morning. And so I had to fill out my shift planner and tell them what I was going to do first. I was terrified of that. And then I realized in later years after working it for a while that there actually wasn't necessarily a wrong answer, unless it was, you know, giving someone a shower over their insulin, probably not great prioritization. But if you can rationalize why you're doing it, so there might be things that are almost equally important on your planner, but you need to just in your head say, well, I think that this is most important and this is why. So that's what they were looking for in that. And then there was, they usually will do stuff to do with conflict resolution as well. So they had, oh, your buddy nurse who is senior has gone on, you know, 8 smoke breaks and is leaving you on the ward to do all the work, and they've said they're going to go on another one. What are you going to do? And that was a hard one, because as a grad, that's something I think we all are terrified of, as is how will I deal with senior nurses and when I'm just starting out, like I have no authority. And ultimately, yes, you do have to have some tough conversations, but you might just need to go and talk to your team leader about it and say, look, this is happening, what do you recommend? Or the NUM or something like that. Don't necessarily go and lodge a formal complaint about this person straight away, but you can definitely ask for some help, like escalating to somebody more senior, and they can help you with that. And that's what I said, oh, I'd speak to my team leader, and that they were happy with that answer. I'm just going to go through some of these questions that have come through. When you say, I'm just going to get that. When you say that they'll be looking at your university in regards to references, what did you mean by that? I don't remember that I said that. What I said about references is that when you apply, you do need references, but there might be different places you can get them if you haven't gotten them on your placements and you don't have the ability to get them on a placement already. So I spoke to my tutors at university quite a lot, and I ended up asking one of them for a reference, which is the one that I had on my resume.
Also, some university facilitators will follow you to the placements. They will not have, in every case, a hospital-based facilitator that's employed by the hospital service. There might be a university one there. So absolutely ask them instead. And just to remind you all, when you are getting them, if you are applying for a Queensland Health Grad program, you need to have your references on the reference template. So if you don't have the template then and there, just grab their email address so you can contact them with that form once you get it.
Yes, yeah, absolutely. And you want to be ahead of the game, like, and sensible about it too. I mean, I had students come up to me, like, if you're working with a nurse for the day or the week or whatever, at the beginning of your shift, give them the form and say, can you please fill this out at some point today? Because then I will fill it out when I have time. I had nurses giving me, I'm trying to write my notes, I'm already going to be leaving late, and then the student comes up with their little piece of paper, goes, oh, can you fill this out? I'm like, are you kidding me? I'm going to be going home half an hour late. You know, sometimes I did do it if I really liked the student, or I was also still learning to say no to people. But yeah, you want them to want to fill it out for you, not want to fill it out. So if you don't necessarily have a high competitive GPA, is there a chance the interviewers will bring that up with you during the process? No, I never had. Yeah, like they're not going to ask you why is your GPA so bad. Like, and usually if you're at that point, you've graduated. Like if you're on track to finish uni, like you've passed, so you're an RN now. Like, not that you are in the interview stage, but if you pass, they have to accept that. And as I said, it is a bigger picture thing, and I don't know about how you guys feel, but I am 100% a hands-on learner, and I learnt more in my first 3 to 6 months in my grad program than I did in my whole 3 years at university. the degree just I felt really angry actually, because I thought I've spent so much time reading about stuff and it doesn't make any sense to me because I haven't been able to actually do it. And all of my simulations at uni were with used equipment. So the first time I pierced like a pressurized antibiotic vial, it just sprayed everywhere. And it's because I'd never actually done that. I'd been drawing up meds from a vial that had been pierced 100 times at uni. So I don't know if that's how you guys feel, but yeah, like there's just so many elements to them choosing you. And so for context, in my interview, or skipping a bit to interviews here, but I was asked why I had taken a year off. And I know some people get a bit nervous about having a gap, I suppose, between uni and working. And it was a competitive position. So there were 35 jobs at the Children's Hospital for grads, and they had 500 applications. And I really didn't think that I had a chance in hell of getting them. But in the interview, they asked me why I had a gap year. And I just said, look, I'm not trying to tell a sob story, but, I was a first responder to a childhood friend and it was really traumatic. And I just thought, I don't think I'm in a good headspace to be starting something as stressful as a grad year at the moment. But I made a promise to myself to finish my degree at least and not drop out on that. So, because I was on placement in an emergency department as well. So it was just awful. Anyway, I said, but I got through. I only wanted to have 6 months off, but the mid-year intakes were so competitive. So here I am. And anyway, they told me that was one of the reasons I got the job, is because I showed that I had self-awareness. I knew my limitations. And so they didn't view it as, oh, she seems like she's going to be flaky. In fact, something that they get more concerned about is most grads actually do feel burnout, but they don't voice it or recognize it, and they push themselves to almost a breaking point. You need to know when you're not going okay and when you can tell somebody or book a holiday. And that's sort of in my grad tips is I recommend don't try and hoard up your leave so that you can go on an overseas trip in 3 years' time. Your grad year is sort of a little bit about survival, and I really think it's very important for you to get in early, because it's hard to get holidays off if you do it last minute, and book yourself a little holiday in the middle of the year and then one towards the end of the year, and you've always got something to look forward to go, oh, I just need to get through these next few weeks and then I have a bit of time off for me. And that's the same with heading towards your grad program starting. I wouldn't be cramming in study and all of this sort of stuff, because you're going to learn so much. You won't even know what you don't know until you get there. I'd be prioritizing just spending a bit of time enjoying before you start work, and preparing your at-home life, meal prep, make sure you've got some sort of routine for your washing and all that, because those are the things that actually end up stressing you out, is that you come home from work and you think of all the other stuff you have to do. Do you have anything to add?
Just in addition to the competitive GPA question, like you might get, like, say Queensland Health, for just say one hospital, they might get 500 applications. It'll already go through one selection process where they will put all your unsuccessful just from your resume. So 100 may not make it to even interview. So if you've made it to interview with a lower GPA, you're doing well anyway. So
yeah, absolutely true.
You just got to do the interview then.
Yeah. Does every ward area offer grad positions? If not, how do I seek the information out of what areas do? For the moment, so it changes. Like especially mid-year intakes, not everywhere or every hospital does take them. And some wards will opt out of having grads. It depends on a certain year, so it depends on their capacity. Did you think that just generic applications as opposed to specific ward ones worked, or did?
Some people really definitely want a certain area, and then they'll have interviews with just your emergency or just your ICU or just medical or children.
Yeah.
They'll have their specific interviews with that from that ward.
Yeah.
Mostly, but mid-year is a bit harder because they've got position IDs for actual grad position. So until someone's finishing that position and that position becomes available, that's when the next grad moves into it. So most areas do it. It's just availability of the grad positions.
Yeah, if you're not really, really passionate about a certain area, which I wasn't, I'd just keep it generic to
Yeah, mental health is a big area that opens up for
a lot of people.
yeah, just to do at least a year.
Yeah, like that is actually also another thing is I think people get fixated on where they end up. If you get a grad program at all, that is just epic. Like you can always transition to another area after your grad year. But just getting in the door and getting the experience and the support in that first year, it will never be wasted. All of the information you learn in that first year will be relevant somewhere else down the track, and you will feel the same way you feel when you start your grad program, maybe not to the same extent when you start in a new ward. Like my background was working, my grad program, I started in a neurology, and sorry, I keep hiccuping. You can't see my tummy, but I'm very heavily pregnant, so I have not much room for breathing or food by the sense of things. Yes, so when I started, it was neurology, neurosurgeon, orthopedics, and it was a very heavy ward. I got quite comfortable there. I'm a creature of habit and comfort, so unless I get blasted out of there, I would have probably stayed there till I died, to be honest. But they made us rotate, so they made us do a surgical placement and then a rotation and then a medical rotation. So you couldn't say, oh, I'm a surgical nurse through and through when you've never even worked in medical. So that was good. But when I went to the new ward, I felt the same, like imposter syndrome, really nervous. And I imagine you'd say the same for if you went to a new area, like ED is ED, and then ward nursing is ward nursing, and theatre nursing is theatre. People have no idea if you have, huh?
Don't put me in a ward.
Don't put her in a ward. Yeah. So you have a huge learning curve each time. So when you start on a new ward, they will definitely be onboarding you. There's basic things like OBS, but even OBS between wards can change. Like your basic OBS will be the same, but then children's OBS are different to adult OBS.
Supernumerary anyway.
Yeah, they'll support you during that transition. So I would be taking a grad program with open arms. And how you seek out the information. Well, you usually can do the first layer of application, so your basic resume and cover letter. And then I got sent from the Children's Hospital, everywhere will be different, but I got sent a piece of paper that had all the wards on it, and they asked me to number the top 5 that I wanted or something, which still wasn't helpful because I hadn't worked in any of those places or had placements and had no idea what working in them looked like. And that is something we're actually going to be working on this year, is trying to put together a bit of a landing page with interviews from different nurses from different backgrounds, so you guys get an idea of what that looks like. But there probably are other resources online for you to just look up, like what's it like to work in certain areas. The Nurse Break does a lot of interviews with people as well, so I would recommend looking up the Nurse Break and seeing if they have interviews from different areas, so you get a bit of an idea of what it looks like. Did you continue any self-learning to help during your transition in your grad program? If so, do you remember any resources that you found were helpful to you? No, I did not go and look for extra work to do. The hospital gave me modules and learning to do at home. Every grad program is different, but mine, we had to still do exams. So we had 2 exams in our grad program, and we did grad learning days, and you had modules to complete, and then we did actually write an essay at the end of the year, and that it was the equivalent of 2 postgrad units. So it actually did go towards some official recognition of learning, and we would have only had to do another 2, I think, to get a postgrad. So some hospitals will offer that, but you will have so much learning that's specific to your ward when you start, and there might be and also like the hospital intranet will have heaps of things for you to look up and do, and they'll have compulsory modules that you have to complete, competencies and things like that are relevant to your area. So until that happens, I wouldn't be wasting time looking. And even medications, like one hospital will use one set of meds for seizures, and then another hospital like that. And I was in the middle of that because the Children's Hospital had merged between Mater Children's and the Royal Children's, and different consultants, like so head doctors from these two hospitals came together, and they all prescribed different things for the same condition, and people would be fighting out about which one was actually the right way, but it was just a preference. So you could have in your head all this idea of what you were supposed to do, but at the end of the day, it was up to the consultant, and you'll be giving the same meds over and over and over and over again. You will end up learning which meds you need to actually remember. Does every prison in Brisbane offer grad positions, and are prisons competitive for grad positions? I think everywhere's pretty competitive for grad positions, but correctional services is different. I don't know if they actually are through the same Queensland Health grad platform, are they?
For the one that's, I was trying to think. I can't remember now.
I'd look up the correctional services page and ask about grads. They will be still competitive, but you know, they do have grad programs. I don't know about mid-year or how often, like if it's every intake, but there's definitely obviously not as many because there's a lot more people in hospital, I think, than prison. Well, I don't know. I don't know what the stats are on that. Probably don't want to know. Some students on placement arrive to their shift early to look up medications, conditions, patients to feel better equipped when they start their shift. Would you recommend this at the start of your grad program? I'd recommend getting there on time and having a look at your handover sheet and identifying the acronyms and things like that you're not familiar with, because that's hard when it's just full of all of these shortened things that don't make any sense to you. But like, if that's what makes you tick, I am really a disorganized person. I was happy if I had like my coffee to get me through the morning, ready for me to start my shift, and then figured it out. But getting there early does help. Looking up your conditions and medications does help, but usually it depends how busy your ward is. Sometimes they'll allocate some time for you to be able, or you'll find time to do that. And then your grad education days will also help you with that. And they do ward specific ones too, like your educator will take you to do stuff. So it's always like that's a different type of learning though. So you're doing something specific to the place, the grad program that you've secured, right? And you know that you're going to be using that information, whereas now, before you're even there, you wouldn't even know where to start for what you're looking up. But if you do say get a grad program in children's, like it's great to look up the different observations and stuff there, because that will be the same across any ward you work in, and it is different. But I think don't overstress yourself leading up to it with all of that sort of stuff. Ash, do you have anything else to add? I realize I've been talking on for a while, but do you want to maybe give them a bit of a background on your application interview process? Did you have a number of interviews? Did you apply for a lot of places?
Sure. So for me, I just applied to Metro North Health because I live close to the hospital that I work at. I knew exactly where I wanted to go, and I did not want to be a ward nurse. I probably would have taken the grad year if they had offered it to me on a ward. However, I had one goal in mind. So for me, it was just writing that cover letter, tailoring it exactly to my values. So I found it really important to speak about my personal values, and I dropped a few of those in line with Metro North's values at the time. So, and I gave examples of that. So I would explain in my cover letter a scenario that I was a part of. So I actually came from 20 years of retail experience before I was a nurse. So I talked about customer service. I had a scenario. It was picking up an item for a customer from another store in my own time and bringing it back. And then I translated that skill into a value of, you know, compassion or collaboration, whatever your hospital values are. So that's something to touch on with your cover letter, and to talk about yourself. So I structured it, an introduction, who I was a graduating student nurse. This is my background. I'm a mum. I've got 3 children, one with a severe medical condition. And this is why I wanted to become a nurse, to do XYZ. I am looking for a job in the field that I'm applying to. You can make it generic, or you can, as you girls said before, you can make it to the department. So if you want to work in ED, you have a keen interest in emergency medicine, go right ahead. Then I just said my values in a list in bold, and then next to that, I gave some examples. So let me just open up a letter here just so I can read off what I had. So I would say, like, effective communication skills, I've got here, I just made a list of them: active listening, empathy, and respectful communication. Collaboration with key stakeholders. In order to do that, I put a few little, sorry, this window is just being a pain in the backside. So collaboration with key stakeholders. The word key stakeholders is something you'll find in a lot of health service applications. They want you to drop that word in there. That's a big it word, especially in the days of AI. We're using a lot of AI to screen grads. Customers, colleagues, senior leadership team, effective teamwork, foresight to anticipate client needs. So that's, I've listed these professional attributes with little examples, and then I talked about my values. So I had, my value of respect. I treat others with respect and kindness, always leading by example. So a simple sentence that encaptures that one value that you have. And 1, 2, 3, 4, or 3 of those out of 5 that I listed were in line with the values of the hospital service I applied to. So I'd say just try and put your cover letter across in line with their values, because you'd actually find when you delve into it, your values are very much the same, and most nurses would be. And then on my resume, I just made it short and sweet. My cover letter was 1 page. My resume was no more than 2 pages. I just put a simple work history with a 5 dot points for each job that I worked at, that just said what I did. And those dot points weren't just a skill like customer service, cash handling. It was a sentence for each of those dot points, just one simple sentence that encompassed that skill. And then, I just was able to preference the areas that I wanted to be in from, I think it was 1 to 6 with Metro North. You would just choose on the portal what you wanted to do. So perioperative was my number 1, and then followed by pediatrics and ICU, and then you could just choose from there. So if you don't get offered your first preference, don't freak out, because you can actually transition. We've had a few grads that have started with us and then moved to other areas. We've had people in PACU doing recovery for a couple of years, and then they've moved to intensive care or the neonatal intensive care unit. So it's not one box for everyone. You have a lot of options.
Yeah, absolutely. And even within your grad year, I had people in my cohort who just poor culture fit or really, really hated it. And it's not always guaranteed, but it is all about voicing that. And the NUM would then ask a NUM of another ward, do you have any grads who are interested in swapping to get some experience on this ward? And they just swapped them halfway through the year.
Definitely agree with that.
Yeah,
we've
so
had a few that have said they don't want to be somewhere because it's just not working out for them, and the nurse managers have been able to move them somewhere where they're much more comfortable, where they're more confident, and in turn their practice improves.
Yes, like they're not mind readers. They won't know this unless you tell them. So you do need to voice these things. What you were saying about values is huge, because, and look, if there's a way of putting it, you need to have a bit of a personal touch to putting that across. But a lot of my interviews actually asked me, how do you embody the values? So it's a good thing for you to have already thought about anyway. Would you agree with that? Yeah. Was it something you looked for in it, or it was like a bit of a tick box moment when you saw it?
All your questions are based around it anyway.
Yeah. Okay. So your templated questions would right, all link back to it. So do look up your hospital values. I would also recommend, when you look at, try and write your resume and your cover letter, then go away from it and come back and try and do a quick scan of it and see how scannable it is with just you having a quick read, like you would a Facebook post or something else that you actually don't know what it's about. Most people, that's how they're going to be going through these, is they need to have things that are easily formatted into their different sections. And also tailor it to the hospital. Some people, I don't know, my sister even did this. She said, "Oh, can I look at one of your cover letters for a bit of inspiration?" And she actually just sent my cover letter off. She didn't change the workplace. She didn't change anything. She's an idiot. So if you are applying for different places, just tweak your cover letter a little bit to make sure you're actually sending it to the right place and it's relevant to where you're applying for, not just one size fits all. Because obviously that will seem a bit sloppy if you haven't already done that. Someone here has asked, are there any specific tips for mature age graduates? Look, not overly. Everyone brings something different to the table, and there are actually a lot of mature age graduates, and I didn't find that stops them from getting grad program.
Mature aged.
Yeah, so
I didn't do a grad program though.
Yeah, but I mean, you've got different sort of life experience to somebody who's only 21 or 20. So don't underestimate that. Do back yourself in and just go for it. I worked with people of all ages who were just starting out, so it's not like you're an outlier if you are mature age. Mature age do really well. Yeah, really conscientious, really great with patients and actually having conversations with them and caring. Like, so I'm now a mum, but when I started, I didn't have any kids, and I think I was relatively empathetic, but I had no idea what these people were going through as mums and parents bringing their children in who were sick. And that's one of the things that I've ended up looking back on and regretting is like, if I had the very rare moment of not having much to do, I thought, oh, I'm going to sit down. This is great. But some of the other nurses who had kids would go and be like, I'm going to go and send the mum from room 10 down to get a coffee quickly because I've got a minute to sit in there. And that is like a make or break for a family because it is holistic. You're nursing, you are looking after people and their families, especially in children's, because the parents are there the whole time, most of the time. So just things like that, your whole perspective on the people you're looking after will be different to someone who's lived a different sort of life. So don't think that you're not bringing something to the table because you're starting a bit later. If I was to apply in another state that I studied in, is there a difference between applications, say in Victoria or South Australia? Yeah, there is. So Victoria has quite a centralized grad application process. A lot of public and private hospitals, I think, register their hospital into one portal. There's still people who advertise outside of that, but Queensland, it is a mess. Like, it's really difficult to actually find out. You have to keep looking up different sites, and we're going to work on finding a way to make that easier and more accessible for everybody. But you do need to look up your different state, and it's quite easy to find the information on it if you just Google like grad programs in Victoria. They'll direct you to government pages, and there'll be a little bit of a tip sheet on that. And don't think about, the other thing is you don't actually need to do a grad program, guys. Like if you feel like it's not for you, or it is not compulsory. So it's great to have the support from a grad program. I really enjoyed having one, and it made me feel more confident. But I've actually spoken to employers in some rural areas and different places that have said, like, we would hire people who are new graduates and give them some support, but it wouldn't be in the form of an actual program. It would be like they're onboarding anyone else, and they're hiring you with the understanding that you have no experience. So don't feel like you're stuck if you don't get a grad program. You don't just have to go and work for an agency or something, more aged care. There are other places that will still take you. And yeah, just ask those questions if you in your grad program applications. Like, you can send them through to all different places, but where was I going with that? I am absolutely
I'm not sure. Sorry.
Yes, so different places, obviously different rules. You won't know unless you ask. Some places will be happy to take you. And on Seek and things like that, they often will say 2 years experience, but there might actually be positions that they are happy to put you in anyway. But the answer is no if you don't ask, I don't think we have any more questions here. Does anyone else have any quick questions they want? Oh, someone did ask about when shortlisting and interviewing for competitive streams such as perioperative nursing, what key attributes differentiate the strongest candidates? Well, from my perspective, if you've had a placement there is a good start. And that was something I was going to say earlier, actually, is if you're on a placement, make it and you really like the place, introduce yourself to the NUM, go and say hi, express your interest in person that you would like to work there and what would be the process for blah, blah, blah. Then they might remember you. Like, it's a personalized thing, and they ultimately will end up being offered grads, right? And so do you think that helps?
Oh, it can. Yeah.
Well,
Especially
if you're
they're
good.
interview, but trying to get to interview.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like there are people who, if you've expressed interest and you're shining through in person, that all just sets you ahead of the game. But it's not going to hurt to put yourself out there, and then you can even say in your resume, your cover letter, that you worked there and we're really interested in that area. So yes, for perioperative nursing or something similar where it's specialized, if you've done a placement there, it's really great. What else would you say? Just showing interest in it.
I can't remember the question.
If you're interviewing for a competitive stream such as perioperative, or even just wanting to interview, what key attributes differentiate the strongest candidate?
Yeah, it's like what Ashley was saying, where what you put in your cover letter, how that goes through. If you meet their values, a little bit about yourself. At the interview, it's how well you do at the interview, really, which will sort of compare who gets the job if there's only one or two positions going.
And they will look at you, like, so the places that I had put down as my preferences, I didn't end up in any of them, not because they said I wasn't right for them, but as in good enough for them. But after speaking with me and knowing my background of having a gap year and things like that, they said, we think your personality and this would fit you really well in this ward and this team, and I think you'd really like that type of nursing. And because the first responder, when I was a first responder to this friend, it was to do with severe burns. And like one of the things that really triggered me was the smell of that. It's just so horrible. So they said, oh, the ward you've actually put here has a lot of burn victims in it. And so maybe, and I was like, oh, I think I would be all right. And they're like, there's no point in making it harder for you this year. So they were actually looking out for me, which was really lovely. So yeah, they will personalize it a little bit. Okay, do we have any last questions before we wrap up? No, that was the same one. How early should you apply for PII before starting your program? Oh, you don't have to worry about that just now, but you do need it before you start work. So it's something that you'd probably be looking at in the couple of weeks leading up to your grad program. With us, you can actually preset your start date so that you don't pay for it until you start work. So you can ring us and say, oh, my grad program starts this date. Can I, set it all up? Is it possible for newer registered nurses to transition to soft nursing, non-traditional bedside jobs? Or do these require more experience? Some people go to research and stuff like that pretty quickly. There's a lot of, it's one of the things that I find difficult with the university system is most people don't step inside a hospital for a year, and by that point you've spent money and a lot of time on something, and then you go to your first placement and you think, oh, I really hate this. And there were so many of them. A lot of students on my first placement actually quit, but then others said they hated it, but they're like, I've already sunk in this much time, I'm going to see it out, which is really terrible, because then you've got people who are finishing nursing who actually hate it. So there are people who from the get-go are like, I don't want to be a bedside nurse. That's fine. We need people who do research and other stuff like that. There are absolutely roles for you there, and you do not necessarily have had to be a bedside nurse to get them. And there's so many options in nursing, so many options. So I would, just see what's available as time goes on. It is probably good to try and just do your grad program. And then you can just express interest. There were lots of people who I worked with who ended up doing part-time research. So they only worked on the ward, you know, 3 days a week, 2 days a week, and then did the rest of their full-time hours in research or other, what sort of other
Yeah, you
roles?
can do some comments to those areas.
Yeah,
as
check it
well.
out.
Yeah, plus you can also use your PDP if you're like in Queensland Health and say you want to do that with, you know, in a certain area for a day, you can do that too.
Mm.
If you want to start learning a bit more about it, just go and see them, tell them how keen you are.
Yeah,
That
yeah.
sort of thing. Just get to know them. Yeah.
And the one of the units I worked in, you know, there's outpatients, there's a more tends to be more day, no night shift sort of stuff. One of the wards I ended up working on was a medical day unit, and that was nice. There were no weekends. It was a Monday to Friday, 7 till 3:30 or 7 till 7. So there are options there. They're not. Some of them are competitive, some of them
You
aren't.
can do some study, start doing some studies, some postgrads towards it as well to show how keen you are.
Yeah, and that
Well
also
done.
gives you a tiny little bit of a pay rise too if you've done it in the right area.
Yeah.
So yeah, there's all those sort of things. All right, guys. Any last questions? Last chance. After this, we'll send. Look, we will send the recording of this one, but as I said, it has been a bit of a schmozzle. So I will also send previous recordings for you to look at that have a bit more in depth, and more questions as well. And then we'll send you a feedback form. It would be really great if you could just fill it out. I will not be offended if it's a little bit too honest about how much a vessel it was this morning. That would be totally fair. But if you fill that out, that really does help us understand what you'd be looking for in the next lot of webinars. So the next one will be in a couple of months' time when you've done your applications and we're heading towards you starting your interviews. And we'll give you some advice on that, like what to wear, how to present yourself, what sort of questions to expect, you know, time frames of hearing back from interviews, all that sort of stuff. You'll have an opportunity to do that. So if there is anything specific that you would like covered more in future webinars, as well as maybe what could be changed for this one for people who come through after you, that would be extremely helpful. So we'll email that out. And if you guys have any questions, please do just feel free to contact us. We're always very happy to help. Anita, are you still here?
Yep, I'm here.
Is there anything that I've missed?
No, I think you've answered all of the questions. We'll send that email out to everyone at some point later today. And if they have any other questions, I guess they can just respond to the email and we
Great.
can
And
let them
now
know.
that we have your emails, we will be able to just let you know when the next webinar's on. So just keep an eye out for that, and you can register the same way you've registered for this one when the next one's coming up. All right, guys. Thank you so much for your, what's that? Oh, wait, we do have one more. Oh, I wasn't able to access recordings. Okay, so someone wasn't able to access recordings last year. Okay, we'll make sure that we do send them through properly this time. I don't know what had happened last year. Thank you so much for your time, guys. I'm sorry it ended up being a bit delayed, but appreciate all of the interaction as well. We wouldn't be able to keep going for the whole time if you didn't ask questions, because I just keep rambling on about nothing. But yes, hopefully we'll see you at the next one, and do contact us if you have any questions. Thanks, guys. And thank you so much, Ashley, for taking the time to do this as well.
No worries, guys. Have a great day.
All right. See ya. Bye.
See you.